The concerned citizens is aware it has to be, whatever the issues are, civil rights in the late 50s, early 60s, they have to have an opinion on it because they're enmeshed in this information coming into the living room through TV, and everybody is quote connected and wired to be concerned about this invasion of their privacy by TV imageries in the living room. Okay, the actual consequences of the television and satellite environment in the 60s meant that civil rights could not happen. That the blacks do not get whatever utopia or whatever new justice that Martin Luther King was working for. It would bring in a greater slavery, a greater disaster.
Right, because it's slavery is viewed by television.
Right, and now, since that is too much for the average human, the average man was to contemplate the slavery, the television is going to put in him and his next 7 generations. That kind of slavery. So the human being, though, is feeling the need to worry about or to have a conscience about something, because obviously a lot of crap is going on, and I should be concerned about something. So that the Vietnam War or the Korean War is propped up as something to siphon off your human conscience, or a sense that your conscience is going somewhere. So when we have images of physical death in Vietnam, that is something people can exercise their puny brains, puny chemical brains. You know, it's the famous two-line card that was made by George Thompson McLuhan's assistant. I have a small brain and I intend to use it. War makes the chemical body brain think it's got something to have a conscience about. It's served up as a package nostalgia for when there was just the horror of physical body dying, to distract from the psychic death over generations that the cold electronic world was bringing.
So in that sense, perhaps it becomes a more sophisticated form of entertainment.
Of conscience, what exactly what you say. It's the new church. That's why, people stopped going to church and thought that they were exercising their human sympathies for the pain around them by getting into the anti-war movement. Or look at the Central American stuff in the early 80s, what's that called, the sanctuary movement? Many nuns and priests were involved in smuggling Latin Americans here to the United States because of the wars in the late 70s, early 80s. It's like people want to exercise the natural feeling of helping people in trouble. A lot of human beings want to exercise that sympathy. And so war gives them some practical bodies to save. And they do that. And McLuhan walked into the middle of that, and they thought he was so cold. James Carey complained about this. He doesn't even care about the students being drafted. He's talking about some other level. Well, it sounds utopian what it's saying. But actually, McLuhan would say, no, there's a bigger totalitarian freeze going on here that you guys aren't even dealing with. If you actually knew which war was important, you'd demand television be turned off and not be so concerned about what's going on in Vietnam. Because he said more people are covering the Vietnam War than are dying or serving in it. And back, I was there in the 30s and 40s. When you watch movie serials, if you're an American, and you heard it on the radio, it was far away. The war was like way over there, something you could look at over the horizon. So visual technologies like the Bible and organizing yourself in churches, that visual propaganda, that visual cultural numbness was seen as a viable response to something happening way far away. You know what I mean? But when the television brought it right into the homes, and we should always remember that McLuhan said, Americans go to be alone and go home to be social. When you brought the outside world, that they would go naturally be alone in the wilderness kind of sensibility, bring that into the living room, that creates all kinds of tensions and menacing images in the heart of the social space of the American home. That's where you were social and friendly and generous, not outside. So that get all mixed up. So the war of the TV form itself caused more chaos and social American life than the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was just, what do you call it, the figure, the red herring, to make you think that that's the issue, because it's too horrifying to see what the real issue is. So we're trying to show them what's right here, the horrifying boundaryless mixing of everything in here inside the war.